let's look at like this really niche, crazy field of bodybuilding. Like how many people want to look like Dorian Yates? How many people want to look Arnold Schwarzenegger, female body? Very few, very, very few. And yet that niche community understood hormone augmentation at the extremes. And now we understand hormone augmentation at a healthy dosages in men and women has tremendous longevity, health span effects, mental and physical.
Yeah.
In terms of, and so there's value in these early niche communities, you know, psychedelics or in bodybuilding or in martial arts or in yogic communities or in breath work. It's just that we see these extremes of like a Wim Hof or a, you know, or somebody who's doing deliberate heat exposure and cold exposure. And the question for a really good scientist should be, is there value there? What can we extract that the general population could benefit from at a more subtle level, like weight training? Everyone used to say, oh, you only lift weights if you're going to the military playing football, you're a bodybuilder. How about extending neural function in the brain by stimulating the neuromuscular system, right? In people in their 70s. I mean, that's being done now. So I think that an open-mindedness is really what's needed in biomedical research and public health. And I think, I can't speak for you obviously, but I get very frustrated, as I think you do and other people do, when people immediately just shut the door like, oh, that's just like crazy bro science biohacking. Actually, there's a different name for it. It's called ahead of its time science. It's called paying attention to things that clearly have big effects and that at lower dosages or done in a particular way might actually have tremendously positive effects. And the best example I can point to would be physical training, resistance training, but also you know, if you jogged in the 1950s, I'll never forget that scene in Mad Men where the woman's out for a jog and all the housewives are like, oh, what is she doing? No one ran outside of PE class.
Right.
Well, jogging craze, now it's like accepted to be a runner. It's encouraged to be a runner.
Yeah.
Huge effects, psychedelics. And so I think I'm old enough now, I'm 47, to just see like, the stuff that everyone thought was crazy, supplements, you don't need that. This is the stuff that can make life better.
Yeah.
And so I don't encourage people to die, but I encourage many of them to retire. I'm like, just a lot of voices just need to retire. Just go away and let the next generation come in, and they'll eventually replace me too. And they'll replace us all, and they'll get replaced. But let these new ideas at least be considered and talked about. That to me is what's exciting about podcasting and social media.
Yeah, and also if you're getting advice, particularly advice about physical health, about metabolic health, or about mental health, or about the possible the actual benefits, whatever they may be. And it's not just dose dependent when we're talking about psychedelics. It's dependent upon the psychology of the individual. It's dependent upon your life experiences, whether or not you have a tendency to schizophrenia. It's not like
those people shouldn't do it. Bipolar schizophrenia very clearly. You ramp up the dopamine and or serotonin system, you amplify psychosis. Yeah. In fact, I was studying cannabis for a while for an episode, clear health benefits of cannabis. And yet we also know that if young males in particular, study out of Canada, who have a predisposition to psychosis, do very high THC cannabis, they are at a much greater risk. The estimate is up to 4 times greater risk for a major and possibly permanent psychotic episode. Now, I am not saying that weed is bad. I'm saying that there are individuals for which it is not going to be a good idea. And there are other individuals for which it might be a very good idea.
Yes. Look at the individual. Like if you're talking to someone who's fat and they're talking to you about health, maybe that person is not really qualified to have this discussion. Maybe they haven't taken care of their own physical health, so they really shouldn't be distributing information. If you knew something that could radically change the way your body responded to diseases, the kind of energy levels that you would have, your mental health, but yet you were ignoring it for some strange reason, well, that person has a giant hole in their life game, right? And there's a lot of people out there distributing health advice that have a giant fucking hole in their health game.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? Like Bill Gates is a great example of that. He's got this big fat belly.